Hey, what's up? I'm Guy.
I'm John.
This is our YouTube channel. Subscribe to it. Give this video a like.
Yep, like podcast below in the description.
Yep, go get that link. All right, John. It is official. 2 interviews. Went and did he do another interview after he left the Jets? Robert Saleh is leaving the 49ers to become the Jets head coach. Good choice by him, I think. You think as well.
He didn't have to go far to Philly. I mean, it's hour and a half. I also think it's a good decision. I think it's a good day for football coaches that are not offensive guys that go, there is a shot, right? If you are a high-level guy, if people like you, leader of men, you don't have to be just some offensive genius. Now, it took him a while, right? It took 2 years of build-up, took a Super Bowl run with arguably, I don't know exactly what the stats said, but I think it's fair to say when they were healthy, they were the best defense by far last year. And this year, I thought was even more impressive to his resume. But I think ultimately he's getting hired for him, for the stuff Sherman always said about him, right? The leadership, the resonating with players, the stuff we've learned about Kyle that I think the way he's talked about is an offensive genius, but really why people love him so much is just how easy he is to deal with and how good he is with the players and how smart he is and how he understands all the different dynamics of a team. And it does feel like Robert Saleh has a lot of like Kyle McVay to him as a defensive guy.
Yeah. I've mentioned this before. You and I have talked about this before in a previous video about Robert Saleh sitting in press conferences when we've been at Niner practices on days that he talks, and you sit in the auditorium and you sit in the first 2 rows right in front of him and you watch him take questions and you watch him interact. I think one thing that I think he does that really works is when he's coaching his players, he's clearly emotional on the positive end of that spectrum. Like, it's kind of Pete Carroll-ish on the positive end of that spectrum, right? You don't really see a lot of lows from him losing his mind. You don't see that much from Pete either. So you see the positive, the exuberance, the attitude of like, I'm right there with my guys. But the guy is not a roller coaster personality guy.
He's a glass half full guy.
He's a glass half full guy, but I also think he's just kind of a one foot in front of the other guy. I think when Jets fans hear him talk, what they'll get is this is not a guy I think that's easily he's not easily flustered, right? He's just kind of he is just plug along. So I think from that standpoint, he is well suited to be a head coach.
I agree. I would agree. I think the one question mark about this hiring is going to be fair is their number one issue right now has been Sam Darnold's situation. Is Sam Darnold good or not? Is it worth trading him for another young quarterback, which if they do that immediately becomes whether they keep Sam Darnold, that means they're picking up his 5th-year option and they're just all in on Sam Darnold. That means the success or not of the franchise will just rest on his shoulders. If they trade Sam Darnold and draft player X, Justin Fields, Trey Lance, Zach Wilson, that guy becomes the new Sam Darnold. And all the pressure is on that guy. And that to me is my one question with Robert Saleh. Whoever he brings with him, let's say Mike McDaniels or LaFleur, one of the two. All the reports were it was going to be Mike McDaniels. If it's Justin Fields or if it's Sam Darnold and that guy starts having success, that individual is going to leave and become a head coach. You could argue next year if Sam Darnold stays, let's say the Jets won like 9 games and the offense was good, Mike McDaniels would probably be a head coach the next year, right? Because he would have been like, he was Kyle's guy forever, and then he got his shot, and it was like, this guy could have been an offensive coordinator a half decade ago. So that to me is just the one question mark. The leadership, the shit that was going on with Gase and Greg Williams, like, I don't foresee do you remember the Jamal Adams situation? Like, it just wouldn't get like that with him.
No.
He's going to be good at that type of stuff. But the league is so predicated on the one human being, which for that franchise is kind of their biggest question mark. It's in a weird spot. It's not like they don't have one. They might have one, but they also might get rid of him. And then would they get another guy? And then immediately, if you're the number 2 overall pick of the New York Jets and you replace Sam Darnold, then you have that dynamic. Is this guy, what if Sam goes somewhere? Is he going to be better? Like, there is just this quarterback kind of conundrum that they have on their hands, right?
Yeah,
he
he
inherits that.
But this is part of why we like the job for him.
I agree, but I'm just saying
no. What I'm saying is
he can't influence.
Yeah. But what I'm saying is part of why we like the job for him is if he took the Lions job, let's say, it'd be on Robert Saleh to decide what to do with Matthew Stafford. He took the Jets job. They have a GM, Joe Douglas. What does that mean? Well, the downside means Robert's not in charge of player personnel. The upside means the guy who's been watching Sam Darnold for a whole year as the GM of the Jets has the final say on what to do here. So that decision, for better or worse, isn't Robert Saleh's necessarily to make, right?
Well, and it was, I think, week 3.
And
They
Joe
did
Douglas
play
is
him.
viewed positively. That's right. He did play him as well.
So he has game planned against Sam Darnold. So he's watched tape, and because it was so early in the season, he might even watch last year's tape, right? Does have an opinion on him, having played him recently, which is probably nice. But yeah, I mean,
I'm just saying it seems like Joe Douglas is viewed as a very good GM, or has the potential to be one.
I think where, for example, Urban Meyer hired today, we don't know who the GM, but whoever they end up hiring, and we did video and put it on podcast stuff, whether it's Trent Baalke, whether it's some other guy that hasn't been named yet, we know who the boss is. The guy that's making like $12 million a year. The dude that was on the yacht. The dude that just flew in today. It's Urban Meyer. If Urban wants a player, they're going to have the player. I think it's healthy for Robert Saleh to go to a situation. He doesn't have to worry about any of that. Now, part of the deal is you get to influence it, right? You get to play. You are a partner, basically, a professional marriage. Him and Joe Douglas now are tied at the hip. This is a huge moment for Joe Douglas's GM career, right?
Right.
Because if the Jets start having success, he would get a lot of credit, right? He pulled the trigger on taking Robert Saleh, where it kind of looked like Atlanta looks like Arthur Smith. The Texans are not going to hire Robert Saleh. Like, Robert Saleh might not have got a job. It's not like he was turning down 7 jobs to take this job. It's a pretty bold hire by Joe Douglas. And at the end of the day, you win in New York, you're just a really big deal. So if he has success, like Robert Saleh, who in a weird way became kind of famous because he was on the really good Niner team, and he's bald and he's just going crazy on the sideline. Like, he's good.
You think being bald helped him become famous?
Well, yeah, he looks different. I mean, I think a lot about, going the hair plugs. I would just look like every other, middle-aged white guy with hair.
Yep.
And Robert Saleh distinctly has this special look, and he's got a great tan head. But part of it, he's like jacked. He just looks kind of different in terms of, like, a lot of coaches are like pudgy and fat. That guy's in the weight room. Joe Douglas, I mean, they're a pretty powerful little tandem.
Joe Douglas bald too?
Yeah, I mean, it's a bald organization.
It's a good day for the Brotherhood.
I find myself
the bald
now,
Brotherhood.
I'm rooting for the Jets.
A lot of temple muscles there.
I know. He's got just good jawline. But he's you just never heard a bad thing about him, right? But he's not, I don't think he's known as like Belichick. And he's not, his defense, the Pete Carroll defense is, pretty straightforward. Yeah.
Predicated on talent.
That's where I get back to the quarterback guy. It's kind of going to make or break his career, I think. And when I say career, I just mean like his tenure in New York is going to be defined by this early move,
yes,
which
he can be helped in a major way or injured in a major way from the start. Yeah. Can I say
it makes it more likely that Sam Darnold gets traded to the Niners?
You just asked if I think it makes it more or less likely that Sam Darnold gets. I don't think it. No, because ultimately that's up to Joe Douglas.
But I mean, Robert plays a part in it too. You're right.
Yeah,
I mean,
but
the compensation. It's not like you see the Niners got Sam Darnold for a 6th. That's not going to happen.
I think one thing. So that's a lot of the Jets' perspective. From a 49ers perspective, I will say it's a little disappointing in losing good coaches is part of the deal. To me, it's a little disappointing in that you had this guy who, after 4 years, really obviously the Super Bowl year, but then this year with all the injuries, there are, one of the things that's become a thing that everyone just believes enough to say is that he did an even better job this year. Okay, let's say that he did. At minimum, he did as good of a job, and that was really good. But whatever. The point is, it's become pretty common to say he did a really good job this year. That's easily accepted. We watched it. We agree. He did a really good job this year. If he turns out to be a really good head coach, like if we look back, we're like, man, we thought Robert Saleh was good when he was here. Turns out he was just a head coach who had to be a defensive coordinator for 4 years before he got to be a head coach. It's a little disappointing that you basically got one good football season out of 4 years of Robert Saleh as your defensive coordinator. Like that, those were the circumstances. Robert Saleh couldn't take him to the Super Bowl in 2017. But, if he's the head coach of the Jets for the next 8 years, I think we'll look back and say, man, You had Robert Saleh as your defensive coordinator. Now, part of it depends on what happens next for the Niners, too. But at this moment in time, I think, gosh, I do think he's one of the best defensive coordinators in the league. I do think he's a really good coach. And you had one playoff run.
That's why I think this year is really kicking the dick. Because if you would have had those first 2 years were tough, but then you had a Super Bowl year and another year where you made a little playoff run, I think you'd feel pretty good about it. I think this year you went 6-10, and there were a million excuses and you got kicked out of your own state, but you're right. I think you look back, if he is really good, you go, God, I mean, we had a really good staff, and they were. I mean, you watched them, you're like, they're playing with Middlecoff, Haberman, Hyder, and
Khalil Hyder Jr.
Yeah, you're like, and they're just. It's tie game in the fourth quarter. Oh, Mullins threw a pick. They lost. But you're right. I mean, they had a good thing going. The staff felt like was young and like they kind of had a unique thing going that we'll see how they replace them. But I think big day for the defensive coaching fraternity because it started trending really, really hard probably the year after McVay. Remember after McVay was good and everyone's like, we just need a McVay Jr.
Yeah.
And it's just like, now it does feel like everyone's slowed down a little bit, even though kind of. I mean, McVay's still kicking out. Why wouldn't you want that guy?
The irony is McVay's where he is because his defense is the best in the league this year.
I know. Exactly.
And he's probably going to lose. If they can do that again next year, Brandon Staley might be
But I think Robert Saleh helps guys like Brandon Staley
for sure.
Get jobs. And I think when you hear this, you're always like, oh, that's just old people talking. Like, hey, guys, it's cyclical, right? It's just it's the ebb and flow of life in football.
Bell bottoms.
You know, whatever. Exactly. It probably come back in our lifetime. I think it has, like once.
Well, definitely the pants that the girls wear that go way up, like above way up above the belly button and like the butt's really high.
That's in. So I had a girl tell me to wear them high. It makes your legs look longer. It actually kind of works, for a shorter guy. Pull them up a little bit.
It's great if you're tucked in or untucked.
Yeah, I mean, you wouldn't do a tucked in shirt, but I mean, just pull them up. It's just the cut on your leg. You got to
keep the crotch.
The cut on your leg.
Yeah, you got to keep smart. Yeah. Pretty smart. All right, let's go make a video about the Niners replacement for Robert Saleh.
Let's do it.